Hi everybody, Corrie Sommers here again today, and today I am with Michael Most of Guaranteed Rate. He's one of my lending partners. He's actually pretty amazing. I've been very impressed with him so far because he's got that East Coast attitude, well, you know, the little East Coast, West Coast thing going on, super direct, and has a background lending in New York City and Manhattan, which is huge, and then came out here to Beverly Hills where he's basically crushing it.
Doing our best, like Frank Sinatra said, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere, right? So,
So, Michael, why don't you share with us why you became a mortgage lender to begin with?
Funny but interesting story. I was actually going to law school and just wanted to have a resume booster, if you may, back in 1999. Went to a mortgage company at that point, decided to just put it on my resume. 2 years later, someone walked into my office and said, "Hi, we're here from Credit Suisse First Boston and another Wall Street bank called Nomura. We have a product called No Income, No Assets. It's the drug of mortgages that's going to go wild over the next few years." And I said, "I'm going to law school. I want to be a litigator. I don't want to do mortgages." And they said, "Just try it. It's like cocaine. It sells itself." And I think anyone that knows the history knows what happened since there. So planning on being a lawyer, fell into mortgages in 1999 and have been with it ever since, coming up on my 20th year. So it's been fun.
So you basically rode the wave when the market went crazy, which I don't want to point fingers, but those products had a little something to do with things.
The products, yeah. I mean, in my humble opinion, when you watch like stuff like The Big Short or read about a lot of these things, like All the Devils in the Room, some great books that define it, I think there was a lot more going on than just the pawns, like myself and other loan officers that were doing the actual work on the street, but where the money was really made on the investment banking side, and other terms where people were making millions and trillions of dollars actually off the Americans that were taken advantage of. That wasn't good. And we're seeing a little bit of that come back now in an interesting way. The secondary market's now back, and there's no income loans and bank statement loans, but hopefully this time around it'll be a little more controlled.
Right. And those loans are actually important for people like you and I, or people that are self-employed, that are, really try to toe that line between earnings and expenses and etc. We tend to need a little more flexibility in a product, right?
Yeah. For the right buyer, there should be the right programs for the right buyers. That's for sure.
That's the key.
Yeah.
So Michael, tell me, what has been your most memorable experience working in the mortgage industry?
Besides for getting through each day, which is can sometimes be memorable, a couple of cool refi booms. I've seen a lot of waves, right? So I got in '99. There were those good years where things were flying off the shelves. Then there was a rebirth in 2007 after the collapse. And then I got into the condo world in New York City, just learning all the different nuances of condos. But the one that comes to mind for me is recently, I had a deal that I don't even remember. Someone mentioned to me that there's a deal in New York City on 57th Street, which is known as Billionaire Row. And the attorney had just closed his $25 million loan as a purchase from three sisters out of Dubai who owned a bank, and they were just moving money back to here. And they said, no one can get this deal done. Those are kind of like really bad things to say to me. That's kind of like we got the juices going and goes, "Oh, I have a problem." Many times, most of the calls I get, clients call and go, "So you're the mortgage magician?" And I'm like, I also do regular deals. I don't just do the complicated ones, but I do enjoy a little more of a complicated deal. So just had this one. We closed it in a couple of weeks. What was really great about it was that the complications between them owning a bank in Dubai, not being able to convert all the funds here, not being able to show all the different funds, where the monies even came from or how they qualify to repay the loan. It was a complete equity play. And then on top of that, the shell companies within the LLCs that were covering from a Delaware company, but working with top attorneys in New York, and just really learning something. After being in the business for close to 20 years, I learned so much on this loan, which is most memorable for me.
Let's talk about this for a second. Your office is technically here in Beverly Hills, although you do lending throughout Southern California. So if I have a client in Studio City or Toluca Lake or someone down in Corona, you can handle everybody, correct?
I mean, I still do a lot of business back on the East Coast. I do a ton of Florida, New York, New Jersey, New York, don't forget it, right? New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. I do some Texas out here. With things becoming so digital, I have access to do things all over, yeah.
But your physical office is here in Beverly Hills, so
Yeah.
what are some of your favorite things to do here in this neighborhood?
So for me, born and raised in Brooklyn, so the fact that I work in Beverly Hills is, it's like iconic. No, it's this like, it's almost a little bit of a fantasy. I mean, I was born in '77, and it's amazing that I live in Beverly Hills. So probably one of the only few people that live here in the Beverly Hills area that doesn't own a car. And the reason, because I love to walk everywhere around here. I love that, well, back in New York, we did the same thing. Like in New York City, you don't really have a car. You kind of walk around, take trains and stuff. So I'm used to that a little bit. But here, just walking up and down Beverly Drive, being able to go up and down Cannon to visit other real estate offices or have lunches at the Montage or wherever it is, there's a culture here, right, where everyone is just out and about, and it's just, I enjoy it more than anything else. That's probably the most favorite part for me, is working here, being able to walk to work, and just people watching most of the day.
Pretty great to me.
Right?
All right, so kind of keeping in line with that, what are some of your favorite restaurants here in the neighborhood?
So let me start with this. My welcome to LA was born and bred, like I said, Brooklyn, New York, moved out here about three and a half years ago, and I kept meeting someone at these family like dinners, and I didn't know this kid from a hole in one. He kept saying, "Let's do lunch," which is a very big LA thing, right? And I didn't understand what that actually means, and I turned to my wife after the first or second time, and I said, "Why does this guy keep wanting to go to lunch with me? I don't even know him." Which is a very New York thing. And it wasn't until I realized that the culture here was so different, and so many deals go down here at lunch, and so many people do so many transactions here versus in New York. It was more popular, I guess, happy hours. Not that there's one way or the other. So for me, Sugarfish, which is right here on Cannon, has become my favorite restaurant.
So, let me ask you this question. You know, here you do a lot of loans, and California, Los Angeles has, I think it's fair to say, a relatively higher price point than most of the country, but you also come from an area that's a higher price point, New York City. What type of loans do you find that you do the most? Like in terms of price point and the type of products?
Out here in LA, I would say there's two main pockets. You have the condo market, which has to move really fast. So you're talking about $1 million and below, mostly even 600,000 and below, and those you got to close really fast, like 10 to 14 day closings. And then you have the bigger deals, so anything between 2 to 5 million. Those are like the two pockets. It's very hard to find stuff in between. So I have friends that work in parts of Northern Cal, and their average deals like between $1 million to $1.5 million, and we always talk about certain products there, and I'm like, it's not really here. You're either sub $1 million, and then it kind of jumps into that 2 to 5 range.
Yeah, I get that. Well, what are your greatest challenges in business right now?
So I can actually flip that question to you. The challenge is, how do you meet more agents like Corrie Sommers, right? How do you get yourself around what are the most valuable things, what are the most valuable things that a lender can possibly offer to someone like yourself, right? So those are my challenges, and meeting agents like yourself and finding out what works for you. Is time the most efficient thing in your day, that therefore someone that can work quickly and get things done? Is it your clients have tighter budgets and you need more creativity? Do you have clients that need smaller down payments or down payment assistance? So it's really back to the agent world, and just I find it fun to meet all different types of agents here and how they're all looking for different things and trying to fit that mold for them.
So, I want to thank you for sitting down with me today, Michael. And, you know, just to kind of wrap things up, share with me what are some of your greatest challenges, and what area do you tend to do the most volume of loans here in Southern California?
I would say that the disparity in loans here is the condo market is basically $1 million and under, so 500, 400, 300, and then it kind of jumps to a $3 to $5 million range. So there's not a lot of pocket there between $1 million and $3 million. There's some stuff that exists, but I think a lot of that goes cash. I don't see a lot of it. The two major markets that I see is the $1 million below and then the $3 to $5 million range.
Okay. And what kind of challenges do you face when you're helping someone buy a property in those, or let's just say the 2 million plus? Like what kind of challenges do you have with those types of loans or getting people closed?
So different from the New York markets that I'm used to, here time is everything. So my last 3 or 4 escrows that I closed were all under 21 days. I had an 11-day escrow, a 14-day escrow, and that's really how you excel here in LA. In New York, I would do $1 million, $5 million apartments, and 60 to 90 days. If you closed a loan in New York in 30 to 45 days, you were a rock star. Out here, because there's lawyers and so many different parts of the process that go on in the co-ops and condos there, versus here, a lot of single-family home or just established condos, and closing a loan in 10 to 14 days here is not as challenging as a lot of people make it out to be. But those are the general challenges that we're faced with here. And I'm finding that by being a step ahead and pre-underwriting a lot of these files for clients and getting them upfront approvals, they're able to get to the top of the list and compete against some cash buyers.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. I don't, there's not a lot of people, I shouldn't say not a lot of people, not everyone understands the difference between a pre-qual and a pre-approval, and how important doing everything heavy in the beginning makes things through the process of purchasing in the end, and how much of an advantage that is. Because essentially, as an agent, to some degree, if you've already underwritten the loan, we can almost present like cash, or at least compete with cash, which has really been critical in strong sellers markets like we've been in for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, I will just share quickly. We had a deal recently, one of these that we just closed, where the agent kept pushing and I kept promising him that we could do a 14-day close. And then they went and opened escrow, and the buyer tells me that no, he doesn't have a visa to be here and he might be here illegally. And I started freaking out, and I'm like, no. I went and promised an agent based on what you told me. It turns out it was all fine. He didn't even realize what we were talking about. When he went and got his visa, he had the right visa. But it was quite a scare for like a day, because the listing agent will call you and say, hey, I need to know for sure, can I trust you, that you will close in X amount of days. And then you give you a word, and it means everything in this town. So it's a pleasure, and I want to thank you for obviously having me on here and just getting to work with you in general. And it's been fun building up my business here in LA under a very different culture. So I would say that's by far my greatest challenge, is the different culture of West Coast versus East Coast, but it's been fun and I'm enjoying it.
So you must like this, because they recently passed that law about the alcohol cutoff time, because out here, I'm sure you know, for years it's been at 2 o'clock, and everybody from New York is always like, huh?
Right.
What is up with that? And we're like, what are you talking about? We got to go to bed.
Right. Yeah. No.
And so that must, I mean, have you gotten to, going out to any work functions and like, hey, it's almost 4, yay, I'm still out. It feels like New York.
So I was here back in 2000, 2001 with friends. Now I'm married with 3 kids, so I'm very rarely out at 2 a.m., whether it's New York or California. But I do remember distinctly when I came out here in 99 or 2000, I don't remember what year it was. And in New York, you don't go out until it's almost 11, 12 o'clock. So you're just used to a later night that then goes on longer. And I remember being out at some bar or something, and at literally 1:59, 2 o'clock in the morning, those lights went on, and as a New Yorker, I remember that experience being like, what are you doing? Shut the lights. So it is a very different culture out here, but it's cool because you get to go to sleep earlier, you get to look better, feel better, right? And enjoy a little bit more of sleep time. So that's been good.
And get up and go to the gym.
And get up and go to the gym.
Well, thank you so much.